I was once the most powerful she-wolf, but an accident stripped me of all my strength. Just when I was about to give up, a mysterious man appeared, promising to restore my power, but the price is my most treasured possession. Chapter 44. Unspoken love, how is it? Do you feel strange? Solas asked her slowly. That. Do you? Celia was trying to say, but could not. Enthusiasm, in the current situation. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Solas murmured, oblivious of her turmoil. Do we have to? Celia tried again, but felt wordless under his close stare and touch. I am listening, Solas assured her, but did not react in any way whatsoever, still doing as he pleased. Do you have to hold me like this? Celia finally said aloud, unable to bear the situation any longer. Like how? I am only hugging you, Solas stated, confused. With a soft mellow tone, she felt like his voice was scratching at her heart, especially when he spoke so close to her ear, and his arms that wrapped around her abdomen sent tingles all around. The problem is how you are hugging me, Celia said, with her usual expressionless face not so expressionless after all. At least, that is how it looked like in his eyes. Her moist eyes with unshed tears of frustration, her slight tremble at every touch. Even the rise in temperature of her body, all of it delighting him beyond words. She felt like a small caged animal, but perhaps it was to be expected. In the mornings, when he cuddled with her, she was still half asleep, but now at night as she sat up on the bed, with him hugging her from behind, and with his head rested on her shoulder, she was wide awake. So how does the ring feel on your hand? Is there something unusual? Do you feel strange? Solas asked again his initial question, ignoring her words, and even redirecting her attention. I don't actually feel anything. It feels like a normal ring to me, Celia said, fooled by his redirection, as she rose her hand in the air to check how much the blue had covered the stone. Unfortunately, it was still only a fine line surrounding the stone. It indeed looked like it would take a month or more. She was still admiring the beautiful ring when she flinched, as the man, who had promised to not do something, was actually doing something. You liar, Celia said, and instantly separated from him, raising on her feet in front of the bed. If he had tried, he could have stopped her from leaving his embrace, but he wanted to see her cute upset face also. How did I lie? Solas asked serenely, not a speck of guilt on his face. Why, you said you will not do anything, but in the next second you kissed my neck, Celia said, and even pointed at the spot. That's not your neck. At least, that spot is not, Solas replied, still devoid of any regret. You looked like he was the one who had been wronged. What? How is it not mine? She asked with a high-pitched voice, upset. She did not understand what he was getting at. That spot will have my mark on it. A month later. So technically. He said like it was the most obvious thing in the world. You shameless man. How can you say that with a straight face? Do you want to see what else I can do with a straight face? Solas asked, smirking, before quickly raising from the bed, going after her. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Jake interrupted her thoughts. She jolted at his words as her vacant gaze stopped, and she looked at him, trying to contain her flustered face. A week had already passed from that night, but she would still remember it each time she was alone. There must be something wrong with her. It was like that man enchanted her. All she could think about these days was him. Even now she was actually in the middle of studying in the common room with the others, and her thoughts flew to him. If she was like this even though she was not marked yet, how would she be when it happened? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Jake called her again, seeing her drift once more into her thoughts. Why, yeah, she finally replied. Are you all right? Could it be that little witch actually did something to you last time? You told me it was all right to tell her your location, but you are spacing out too much these days. Has she enchanted you or something? He asked, worried. Every now and then, the alpha seemed lost, and the usual solemn face she used to show in the past softened somehow, as her cheeks turned bright red. Then moments later, she would frown and shake her head, but her face would turn back to the vacant flush gaze in a little while. If it happened once or twice, he wouldn't be concerned about it, but it had repeated for quite a few times already. If she wasn't enchanted, then he could not really explain her current state. No, of course not. She has been my friend since I was little. She would never do anything to me. She's helping me with something. Don't worry about it. She immediately denied. She did not want him to accuse an innocent person of something she did not do. Cursor was such a sweet witch. She would never use her spells on anyone, or hurt even a fly. What was it that you wanted to say? Celia asked him, to take his mind off of asking her more. I was already telling you, but I guess you did not listen, so I am going to tell you again from the beginning. Gabriel has someone visiting him at the moment, so he sent the secretary to let us know we will be training first, then have a history course with him, so we should probably go change. The training starts in half an hour. Oh, all right, Celia replied, already standing on her feet in her books from the table. With the table cleared, she followed the guys out, walking behind them to the locker rooms. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. The combat teacher was informed that her health was not completely recovered from the attack. She still wanted to keep on training to maintain her shape. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. This was not the real reason she could not train with her werewolf strength. The real reason was Crescent's transfer. But this was a secret. So this whole week, as the guys had their rough and harsh outdoor training, she would hit the gym exercising on her own, having an easier workout. How is it, brother? Do you remember me now? Asked Kane, finally able to talk comfortable with his brother. After all these years, with the latter having his memories intact, his brother was a hero. He was the one who had volunteered to have his memories stored in the crystal, and stay as a dormant mole in the academy. The information he had gathered all this time would be priceless. The defenses, the securities, every bits of information he would have, would help them out a lot. But it did not mean he did not miss him. He was the only member of his family that he had. As rogues they only had each other, before His Majesty had brought them to his side. Yes, now I remember. It is a bit difficult, as all the memories keep overlapping, but I should not have a problem in a couple of minutes or so, the man said, breathing heavily. He felt his head was splitting in two, as all the memories he had missing came back with full force. Kane had come visiting about once every 3 years, but he had never known just who he really was until now. He had previously thought he was only someone who had helped him all those years ago, when he lost his memories. But strangely, perhaps because of the blood ties between them, he had never doubted the existence of the man before him, as someone he could trust. Only now he knew just why. If you have come, does it mean I can finally go back? The man, hoarsely said. It hurt him a lot, the process of restoring his mind, but he was happy to be his true self again. Yes, it has been long enough since you have been away. His Majesty has graciously called for you again. Kane replied. Good, good. Having my memories again. This place disgusts me. Being rogues and enjoying some good killings and tortures together. These are things I have truly missed. Don't worry. The cages are filled with some good praise. We won't have any trouble having a bit of fun, his brother assured him. Then let's leave. With my memory intact, I think I may just kill someone before leaving this place. Kane's brother, chuckling, said. Having reverted to his old personality, he was now only a killing machine. One could not see even a small sign on his face of his former memorable self. The teacher who had gladly taught his students, The one who had prepared them for their future could now rip their throats out without even a small regret or remorse. He would do so, even with a bright smile adorning his face. Wait, before leaving, His Majesty has a person he wishes from this place. It would be a wonderful present to bring back home for him. Oh, who? The man asked, confused. Who His Majesty want from the Academy, the alpha of this year's Watcher pack? These past few days, Lucian has begun hunting some prey, so the kings and his officials' attention should be somewhat redirected towards that. Even now he is on their tracks, and we would be long gone before they could track us. But it still might be a bit hard to do. The Academy still has its defenses. That was why I came to get you first. Not to mention, the Alpha would surely put up a good fight. She should be a tough opponent. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I am sure you are already aware of that. Kane affirmed. He was troubled by this. To get inside was easy, as he knew someone who could vouch for him when he entered. But bringing someone out, now that should be nearly impossible. In huge academy grounds, even one student be missing from their place. It would alarm the teachers and the guards. More so if they were talking about the alpha of the Watchers. Not to mention, even if she was only a girl, her rank should still be high. As the hunter told them, they had put 7 bullets in her body and she had still survived. Such a person would certainly fight back, even if they caught her off guard. A little delay because of her struggle, and they would be captured in a heartbeat. He and his brother had always been powerful rogues, but they could not risk being found out before exiting the premises. Not necessarily. Salas has ordered us teachers to not have her participate in the normal training for the time being, for her to abstain from the usual training the Watchers normally do. It should not be something without a good reason. There could still be an opportunity for us to bring back the gift for His Majesty, his brother said, thinking a bit, smirking. Why stop her from training? I don't understand. Kane asked, frowning. Why would the king order them to stop her normal training? Not to mention, why would the king personally care enough to call himself? It seemed this person was quite special. So this was why His Majesty wanted her. The reason he gave is that she is still weak from the attack. But that was a month ago. No matter how injured she was, she would be perfectly fine by now. Without my memories. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I obeyed his order without second-guessing. It makes me sick to even think about it. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. It is not the real reason. I think that she right now could be quite easily captured. Are you sure? Kane asked. He knew his brother was smart. This was why he was the one perfect for the mole job. Even without his memories, he had perfectly mimicked a normal pack werewolf, even though his personality was nothing close to it. But he wanted to be certain of a foolproof plan. For this whole week, Celia Blair has only trained just like a normal human would. She has never used her werewolf strength even once during her workouts. Think of it this way. If all of your life you were used to doing something, could you suddenly stop doing it just like that? Using a werewolf's power is just like breathing air. Sometimes even without meaning to. She would still use it. Right. Even if she was still recuperating. But not even once this week she did. She feels just like a normal human. My best guess is that there is something preventing her from using her power. Something that would be perfect for us to use. His brother stated, analyzing the situation. Kane listened intently. As expected of his brother, he indeed was the brightest. This was why His Highness had said he felt like he lost one of his limbs. His brother was always the one who followed His Majesty's orders perfectly, even though he never held all the details. Now as for how to do it. The pack has training, as their next class. Unfortunately, the training grounds are at the border of the academy. They are the furthest from the center. Trust me, we will be able to take her away without a hitch. Running on the treadmill, she breathed in and out. finding it a little hard to continue working out, not using waning strength to regenerate her worn-out muscles. Indeed was not pleasant. Since she was small until now she had always been an active person, but thinking about it, she perhaps relied a little too much on her regeneration and inhuman speed and strength. Not to mention, she had been a bit too lax in her training with all that had happened this last month. Well, even if she hadn't been lax, the exercises that she had been accustomed of doing, considering her werewolf strength, had been harsh, but now only using her human side. She thought that having the training would be enough. Apparently it was not. Full of sweat and with red cheeks, she hit the showers, before putting on her black uniform again and tying up her hair in a ponytail. Checking her appearance in the mirror, she left the gymnasium and walked towards the building where the courses were normally held. Unfortunately, the gymnasium was a little further from the center of the academy, so the training sound and voice did not bother the students who were studying. As such, she had a bit of a distance to walk. She stepped quickly on the frozen path, but found it odd that she did not see the members of her pack running around, doing their laps. Could they had gone even further with the teacher? She wondered, but paid no more attention. It was quite cold, as it was still winter, and for the same reason as her training, she found the cold a little hard to get used to without her powers. Fortunately, it was only a little under a month she would have to bear it. Esh could happily see the blue steadily surrounding more than a quarter of the ring already. To my agent extraordinaire, Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. Hearing the ringing sound, she took out her phone, and seeing Solaz's phone number on the caller, happily pressed the answer button. "Hello," she shyly said. "Hello, my love. How are you?" Solaz gingerly called, making her skip a beat. She could not get used to this honey-like person. "I am all right. I just finished my training and I am heading towards the study building," she replied, with heavy breaths as she was walking. "Why do you keep on training? It should be quite difficult without using Waning's power. Look, even your breathing seems off," he scolded her, with a tender tone. Even if he was admonishing her, he could not be harsh. "I still want to train. I am only now beginning to realize just how much I rely on my werewolf power. I should still try to do my best training. It's not always good to depend only on them," she explained, walking slower to not breathe heavily and worry him more. He had wanted to keep her locked up in the palace, for this time when she could not use her powers. It took a lot of time and effort to convince him to let her come to the academy. What if he insisted again for her to not go out? "As always, you are so smart. That's why I love you," Solaz affirmed with a hoarse, elegant voice. She listened to his words, feeling like her heart would come out of her chest. Listening to his confession, she realized she had never told him those words herself. She had never expressed openly how she felt about him. He had told her several times already, and he had also shown it through his actions more than once. But what about her? Solaz, she called him, with a determined voice. For some reason, she felt like she wanted to let him know how much he meant to her as well. To my agent extraordinaire, Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, he murmured, to let her know he was still listening. "I also love." To my agent extraordinaire, Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. To my agent extraordinaire, Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Solaz called her, shouted through his phone, just as he was listening to her words. Her voice was suddenly interrupted without her even managing to finish the word she was about to say, like she was blocked, followed by a loud smashing sound and total silence, increasing his uneasiness to maximum. To my agent extraordinaire, Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He shouted again, panicked, feeling helpless that he was too far away. If he had been at the palace, in several minutes he would already be by her side. But he was farther away this time. His heart felt like it was smashed into pieces hearing the deafening silence on the other side of the phone call. Chapter 45. The weakness of the strongest werewolf. So in the end, we found nothing. Honestly, you interrupted the Watchers history class for only bogus information. I thought you were better than this, at distinguishing true facts from false ones. Gabriel reprimanded the young man at his side, and one of the investigators he had under him. The man had called him saying he had some important leads, but nothing turned out right. He was already feeling frustrated, having no substantial leads for all this time. And now he was interrupted even for fake information. It was like someone was deliberately toying with them from the shadows. Hunters attacked a pack of students with the sole purpose of capturing them, which was already weird enough, as the hunters' primary goal was always to kill rogues. Not to mention, they had a pact with the Hunters Association from decades ago, and the others wouldn't just break it for no reason. Investigating that, it only turned out that the hunters who entered the forest that day had nothing to do with the organization. What a joke. It was like they were rogues themselves. Honestly, rogue hunters capturing normal pack werewolves, when normally, there should only be hunters, approved by the association, hunting and killing non-abiding law rogues, and the witches they had brought with them were also not part of the covens. Clarissa, the leader of the witches, had not recognized the amulet they retrieved from the forest when the king asked her, the last time she was here, after she had given Celia the ring. Secondly, after hunters, rogues also entered their borders. And not just normal rogues. No rogues that were carrying hunters' weapons, not forgetting to mention that the first time their future queen was injured, and the second time, their king. Well, technically the second time the king was also partially at fault, for carelessly moving forward because of his unrequired love. What would witches, rogue werewolves and hunters have in common with each other? Why would they collude against them? Now probably only vampires and dragons were missing from the mix, and they would have the whole set. It was like someone was rounding up all the strays he or she could find. And beside the attacks needing to be investigated, he and the council also had to find reasons to dismiss the alphas and betas that had gathered at the palace, and were waiting for Solas to meet with them the second day after the ball. Some left easily when he told them the meeting would be rescheduled, but others from bigger packs were not as easily fooled, and it was not like they could just mention this highness was unconscious and could not hold the meeting. Now humans had also started missing, in a large number at that. Normally, it would not be their problem, but from the look of it, rogues were involved, and they did so without carrying about being found out by humans, in absolutely freaking plain sight. Really, things could not get any worse than they already were, he finally thought as he was entering the academy grounds. He barely alighted the car, coming back with his assistant from checking on the missing humans, when he was proven the contrary. Things could get much worse. Much, much worse. Standing on the ground of the academy, the most wretched of sounds was heard from the distance. It was a terrifying violet sound. It was a sound filled with rage, sorrow. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, regret, loss, all feelings jumbled up in one agonizing howl, making one's heart squeeze in fear and empathy. Hearing this sound, the assistant was already on the ground, barely managing not to collapse from fright. Gabriel was still standing, but even he had shown his neck in submission, with the hair on the back of his neck standing in fear. All around the academy, students. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Guards, all who were present, no matter where they were, began collapsing on the floor in fright, gasping for air. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. With a higher rank, were still standing or at least kneeled with their neck shown, But all of the students were kneeling, with most of them even collapsed on the floor completely. This is, the assistant barely managed to stutter, as he felt that even the air was hard to breathe. He would recognize that howl anywhere. It was the howl of the most powerful werewolf, their king, but such a tone he had never heard him make in all of his life. Gabriel said fright and by what it meant. Even during the war decades ago, Solas had never reacted like this, had never been this savage and domineering, had never demanded submission like this from them. It was like he had wanted to rip each and every werewolf on the academy grounds. There could only be one single reason that could make the highest-ranking werewolf alive act like this, and specifically here. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Gabriel whispered, and trying to free himself from the mental shackles Solas had imposed on them, partially transformed himself, his fangs and claws extended, with his green eyes turning black, before he swiftly ran towards the sound. On the path between the training buildings and the study ones, several teachers, the members of Celia's pack and a few guards, were kneeled a little further from the king. They were shaking in fear, as the latter was also collapsed with his knees on the snowed ground in front of a small patch of blood. I will kill you all. All of you will die today, his voice resounded, as his horrifying howl stopped. The words filled with killing intent had frightened them even more, so they lowered themselves until they could reach the ground with their heads. But none present knew what they had done wrong to incur His Highness's anger. His Highness had come running in his wolf form, breaking all the gates in his path, not bothering to walk through the normal formal route, until he reached this location and inexplicably knelt on the frozen ground. Seeing him in such an alarming, terrifying state, they had quickly come, thinking something had been truly wrong, and wanted to offer their assistance. But until this moment, the king had not asked them anything yet, and had even threatened to kill them. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. His words did not feel like a threat, more like an impending reality. The Watchers students were also caught up by mistaken mess. They were only now returning from running around the whole territory of the academy, as their instructor had ordered them to, and were about to go meet up with Celia, and return to their clan to their classes. But Solas's howling had also stopped them in their tracks, making them fall on their knees, as they felt their air was cut off, gathering in his hands the small red snow that was starting to melt at his touch, falling once more in small drops to the ground. Solas was already beyond the point of no return. As the blood-filled snow melted completely, he slammed his hands in the ground in wrath, hands that were already changing their shape, with his bones rearranging in massive paws. His clenched jaws elongated themselves, accompanied by countless cracking sounds, into a black furry snout with sharp teeth and canines, as his spine snapped to fit his now four-legged posture, extending to form his long tail, transforming into his midnight black wolf. Sky was stricken with grief and could no longer be suppressed. Not that Solas was intending to. He as well wanted to kill all who had not managed to protect his beloved. Oh no, Gabriel murmured breathless, enthusiasm in the face of the massive wolf. The enormous black animal rose from the ground, a growling sound constantly rumbling his throat. He moved slowly at first, but it did not make the threat of his existence any smaller. His giant mouth opened, showing his huge protruding canines and small droplets of saliva of a raging beast. His head lowered with his ears standing up in an intimidating manner. As his tail swung slowly with each step, he was moments away from approaching the teachers and ripping them apart. Each step he took, sending small ripples under their feet, as they shook in fear, accepting their imminent deaths. Solas in such a state had no cure. No one would be able to stop him in this condition, the one stronger than the Council of 12 combined. In such a situation, the king would only react to his mate, the only anchor to his savageness, but unfortunately they had no such person, thus no way out, as he was not even asking explanations for the crime they could have committed. Gabriel, "Our queen. She's missing. His Highness is rushing to the academy," Micah informed, quickly using the pack link. As he was approaching the academy, he was near His Highness when the phone call was cut off, and the letter stormed off. Unfortunately, the link only worked at a certain distance from each other. This was why Micah only now managed to tell Gabriel of what was happening, or else he would have quickly informed the guards on the premises of what was happening and they might have done something about it. But even the phone seemed to have been interfered with. He could not get in touch with any guards. "Solos!" Sky Gabriel yelled, now aware of what had happened, rushing in front of the teachers. "Stop it," he told Solos, but the latter was still advancing towards them. He no longer recognized any of them as friends, allies, only prey that needed to be dealt with. The people on the premises admired Gabriel's interference, his courage to stand up to the king they lacked, but they knew it was futile. The king could no longer be reasoned with. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Gabriel yelled just as the beast opened his mouth in his direction and was about to bite him to death. The Watchers students froze at the mention of her name. Why would Gabriel call it now in front of Solas, as did the teachers, not understanding his reasoning, but the one that completely stopped in his tracks. Even in his current madness, Sky understood perfectly. He slowly closed his mouth but did not stop his growling, as Gabriel continued. "If you waste time dealing with us, you are wasting precious time in saving her. You are not helping our queen by acting like this," Gabriel said loudly, to make himself clear to the creature, as the crowd let out gasps all around at the mention of the word queen even in their current scared state. Only then did the wolf stop his rage altogether, allowing the human side to take over. The savage beast transformed into Solas, as the latter collapsed once again on the ground with tears flooding from his eyes, his image contrasting the earlier madness. "They took her from me, Gabriel. Even her scent I do not feel in the air. I have no way to follow my mate," he hoarsely said, as Gabriel took his coat off and put it on Solas's naked back. "Solas, you are too involved and do not think straight. Take a step back. You are the only one who can find her. Come with me. There's something that can be done," Gabriel said to his friend, not thinking more about the fact that he had been a step away of being killed. Above all else, that was what he had always been to Solas, his friend. After ordering all those present to not speak of what happened, Gabriel quickly instructed the guards to check all the missing people on the academy's territory. This kidnapping could not have been possible without someone from the inside, but it did not take long to find a suspect, as the Watchers students, realizing something was off, and hearing his words, quickly told Gabriel of their missing teacher. As never before, their combat teacher, Riddick Kane, had told them he would leave for several minutes, after instructing them to run around the academy. Normally, they would have only run on the training grounds, but they did not second-guess their teacher's intentions, thinking that the latter had wanted to increase the distance of their jog. The problem was, although considerable time had passed since he told them to do so, the teacher had not returned. "Teacher, we also want to help. Celia is Alpha. No matter what, we can also search for her," Jake said, fearing for her life. "If there is something to be done, we will let you know," Gabriel said, but did not offer more explanation. Time was of the essence, so both Gabriel and Solas quickly left, with only Micah remaining behind to check for other clues. At the royal palace, ascending quickly the steps of the stairs leading to the throne room inside the royal palace, Solas and Gabriel were greeted by 5 of his council members. Emery Victor Reynolds, Merrick Riemann and 3 others had quickly come at Solas's summon. The rest of them were gone in other parts of the world handling pack matters, and could not come on such a short notice. But, nonetheless, all of them had still sent the people His Highness had ordered them to. In the huge throne room, as Solas sat down on his throne, all the people consisting of the relatives of the council members and other close werewolves who had known about him leaving on the night of the attack in the forest, had bowed down and waited for His Highness to give them the usual permission to stand up. The king would normally ask them to lift their heads almost immediately, but this time he did not, so they could only awkwardly still remain with their heads bowed. The atmosphere was weird and suffocating, while the circumstances for why they were gathered were not made clear by their families, no matter how the wives. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Grandchildren and the rest asked. All who had over the age of 16 had been ordered by the council members to go to the royal palace, without the smallest information, looking from side to side, hoping that the informant would be between them, but at the same time wishing to rip them to threads with he or she truly in their midst. Solas released his alpha aura, an aura much like the one at the academy, had engulfed all of them, causing them to fall to the ground, with the stronger ones barely kneeling. Council members, I think I have waited long enough. Nobody is more important than my queen. Solas informed the 5 elders that stood on his right side in the front, with a sharp harsh tone. The information baffled all the bowed people, as it had the teachers at the academy, although none would show it. The council men did not reply to the king verbally, and only obey by bowing their heads, a confirmation of their loyalty. Indeed, His Highness had showed them enough respect. Would he have wished to before? He could have found the informant using a cruder manner, but conscious of the fact he was not a tyrant, Solas had not used this method to find the informant. He had given the families the benefit of doubt, showing them respect for the years at his side. And where did it get him? His queen was now missing. He had wanted to lock her in his palace, until her powers could be used, but could not resist the petite woman's pleading eyes and voice, accepted her attending the academy. He was careless knowing no one but his close associates knew of her existence as his mate, and thus no one would have a reason to hurt or take her away. But he would be careless no more. No, from now on he would take action as he should have from the start. All of you, close your eyes now, Solas ordered them, using his alpha voice, a voice they had no choice but to listen, even though were afraid for their lives. The person who, deliberately, leaked my location on the night the students were attacked in the forest. Stand up, Solas shouted, using the same alpha voice, but with a harsher tone this time. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. She was trying with all her strength not to, even trying to grab the carpet beneath her to avoid standing up and clenching her muscles to not change her position. Her body reacted to the higher-ranked werewolf order almost immediately, at his words. Regardless of her will, Yvonne stood up, trembling and as pale as she could be. She had barely stood up when she was violently pulled by a hand and thrown across the immense throne room, landing in the hallway where she fell with broken bones. Terrified by the king's anger, she looked up, only to see that Solas was still sitting on his throne. The one who was standing in her place, and clearly the one who had thrown her, was none other than her grandfather, and the person that doted on her, since she was a small pup. Merrick Riemann was grateful to His Highness. He knew the king even now made all the people close their eyes to not dishonor any of the council members. Solas had tried to not reveal to the world what his own flesh and blood did. Looking disgusted towards the granddaughter he had adored and painstakingly raised, the elder made one single step, before disappearing from her eyes only to reappear in the second right next to her. Grandfather, I did not, Yvonne managed to utter slowly, but the smell of fear she emitted and the fact that she had been the only one to stand up earlier was enough to convince him she was about to tell lies. He had known Yvonne always aspired to more, and he had also felt she deserved more, but not like this, not in a traitorous way. He lowered his hand without talking at all, grabbing the back of her neck and dragging her with him through the crowd until he reached in front of the king, before releasing her, as she fell to the floor. Everyone else, but the council members and Gabriel, leave now, Solas ordered. Your Highness, I did not. Yvonne tried to speak again, but no one bothered to listen to her. No one said a word, until the doors were shut as the crowd left. "Who did you speak with about matters concerning Celia?" Solers asked, reeling in his anger to obtain the information he needed. At some other place, feeling an excruciating headache that jolted her out of the unconscious state she was previously in, Celia woke up, and quickly stood up a second later, as she realized that someone had hit her from behind, causing her blackout. Unfortunately, the pain persisted as she could not regenerate using her werewolf power. Checking her surroundings, she did not recognize the dark, eerie room, devoid of furniture other than the canopy bed she was on. The only thing she could tell was that it was already dark outside, as the full moon was steadily rising on the sky. She rose up on her feet, with her hand moving a bit to aside the loose pieces of silk that dangled from the posters of the bed, as her heart beat uncontrollably, frightened of the unknown. Approaching the window, the single source of light, her entire being trembled as the only thing she could see in the distance was nothing but a white-grey atmosphere that was made up of the countless snow-covered trees that enveloped the ground as far as the naked eye could see. The lifeless scenery sent even more shivers to her heart as she continued to look. It was the first time in her life she was alone, as even waning could not be contacted. Do not interrupt Crescent's transfer. The first time she had felt this alone and agitated in this unlit sinister room, where no sounds could be heard, other than her unsteady breath. Facing away from the window, Celia froze, scared out of her wit. Why did she assume she was the only one in the room? Her hard breathing from before stopped altogether, as she felt the ice-cold hand that was now almost gently touching her cheek. The beautiful man before her, with his platinum blonde hair and ice-grey eyes, felt nothing but a demon, even though he was as beautiful as Solers, emanating even the same solemnity and strength. Hello, little Alpha, the weakness of the strongest werewolf. Chapter 46. A werewolf's hybrid child. Some centuries ago, living in a tiny house at the edge of a small village near a huge forest, a family of to happily live their days. The house, even though little, was enough for the mother and son. Their life was not exactly easy. In fact, it was rather a difficult one. To provide food for her child, the mother had to work a small patch of land that was not quite suited for planting vegetables, giving her a hard time taking care of them. The vegetables provided by her small garden, other than for cooking, also needing to be used to tray for candles, clothes and other necessities for the two. "Mom, I am going to go gather some wood," the little 10-year-old boy informed his mother, to ensure they had a warm home and fire for cooking. It was one of his daily chores. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Sweetie," acknowledged his mother, as the boy had already taken a basket and was walking towards the door. The forest seemed intimidating from the first step a person would take inside of it. If one would go deeper and deeper along the trail, it lost bit by bit its light, because of the ever-growing tall trees clustering together tighter as it reached its center, making it even more eerie. The faint light of the sun, not managing to reach the ground at all, as green vegetation grew all around. This dark scenery, accompanied by the sounds of owls, foxes and other small animals, not to mention the rustling of leaves that stood in the way of the ever-present wind, would frighten any adult out of entering the forest alone, much more a child. Even so, the small child entered it with glee, walking on his usual path, unconcerned about such matters. And why would he? In the forest, one of the scariest of animals to worry about would be a wolf, but he would never be frightened of one. "Hey," a voice spoke cheerfully from behind, making the boy suddenly turn around with a bright smile. "Hey, Vlad," greeted the boy, looking up at his friend, who was standing on the trunk of a fallen tree. Glad to see him. He was actually one of the reasons the smaller boy would never be afraid of entering the forest. The older boy, a 15-year-old teenager, cheekily smiled, approaching him, after he had jumped down on the ground. "Your sister Eleanor?" Fenrir asked, surprised. Vlad was most of the time accompanied by his older sister. Each time he saw them, But now, looking around him, he could see Vlad was by himself. Vlad sighed, remembering the ungrateful girl who no longer spent any time with him. She was always hanging around that mound these days, and they would always be smooching or cuddling. He shivered at remembering such things. She found her mate, and now she is always with him these days. I doubt you will be able to see her much in the future, replied Vlad, still looking a bit disgusted. He was not at the point to think about finding his own mate, or at least hope for one yet. What is that? Asked the small boy, curious. Why would he no longer see Eleanor if she found a comrade? The boy thought, not understanding the true meaning of the word. Well, a mate is the other half of a werewolf. The goddess splits each wolf's soul into and places the souls into two babies before they are born. So the werewolves with the halves that manage to find each other will become mates. Young Fuzz, they will become the most important partner a werewolf will ever have. Apparently, even more important than your own baby brother, grumbled the teenager at the end. That rotten girl was always with him, but now he would barely even see her shadow. Wowly, will I ever have one? Asked Fenrir, already imagining a beautiful girl made just for him, to make a happy family like his mom and dad, even though the latter was rarely around them. I don't think so. You are a hybrid. My mother said that only full werewolves would have one. Vlad answered honestly. He had befriended the small boy a couple of years ago, when he smelt him entering the forest, and curious about meeting a hybrid, had from time to time talked with him. It was for this reason that whenever he learned something from the adults of his pack, he would also ask if hybrids would be the same as them. The adults frowned at him, as a hybrid was something to be looked down upon, so they did not take lightly his questions and had also told him to never interact with one. But he still met Fenrir sometimes with his sister, regardless of their words. I will never have one, asked Fenrir, shocked. He was aware that he was a hybrid. His father told him so, when Fenrir saw him turn into a real giant wolf, and asked if his mother could turn into one also. Knowing from his father that he was a hybrid, he never put much thoughts into this before, but a feeling of inferiority still sprouted inside his heart just now. No, well, the truth is, a hybrid closely resembles more his other parent, rather than a werewolf parent, so you would be mostly human, not a werewolf. Vlad answered again, not realizing how shocking and life-changing the information was for the boy. He was so shocked that even when night came he did not go inside his house, waiting to see if his father came to visit. He sat on the porch of his house, constantly seeking with his eyes his presence. Coincidentally, after waiting for several hours, a big black wolf could really be seen in the distance exiting the forest. Normally, he would barely see him once or twice each year, so he had not told his mother that he was indeed waiting for him, as the woman would have not let him do so, knowing it could possibly be in vain. He happily ran towards the wolf who, seeing him hurrying, had slowly started to shift into a human. The boy called, as the man had already hugged him in happiness. How did you know I would come tonight? The beautiful ebony-haired man with blue eyes asked the miniature version of himself. I did not, but I hoped you would. Listen to this. Vlad said I would never have a mate if I would never be a werewolf. The boy cried as he told his father his sorrow. The family had lived for years at the edge of the village because he was not a complete human, and they had to stay away from prying eyes. But now finding out that he was also not a werewolf, the boy felt lost, unaccosted by both worlds. Hearing his words and sorrow, for the first time the man felt he had truly made a mistake. Seeing his son cry for a mate he would never have made his heart also shake from despair. That the sorrow was not only because of the uncertain future that he had created for the boy, but because of his unknown future also. Being the younger brother of the heir to the throne, he had felt lost in life. His parents' focus had always been on his older brother. As such, he had continuously rebelled against the norms the werewolf society imposed, in hopes of gaining their attention and love, but it always had the opposite effect. Reaching the age of 17 and shifting for the first time, he had at least hoped he would have a mate and start a family with her. gaining thus a purpose. But years had passed and he did not find her. Angry, especially seeing his brother with his mate, and jealous of the attention the latter had gotten from everyone, he had lost his way even more. Finding a beautiful woman in the forest one day, he had fallen in love with her, even though he knew there would be a mate for him in the future. And, regardless of the injustice he would make towards the future werewolf who would become his mate, the man had kept on meeting the woman, and even made a family with her, a fact known to the werewolf kingdom. Several days ago, he had met his true mate, a girl who had barely managed to shift for the very first time, and only then did he understand why he had not met her before. The beautiful and lovely girl was the apple of her parents' eyes and also of other Ventilentia members. Her parents had doted upon her since young. The petite woman was thrilled of meeting him, happy to find him so early, but that was only because she did not know of what he had done. His regret of not waiting for her, coupled with the regret of the lives he would destroy, were quickly sealed away, not bearing to face the consequences of his actions. So they were replaced by anger at the injustice of her late appearance and not wanting to admit he had done a horrible mistake. The man rejected his mate just as he found her, even though they were in the presence of the king and queen. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Had tried to stop him. There had never been a member of the royal family rejecting one's mate, but he did not listen. Even when the beautiful woman fell wretched at his rejection, how could he tell them he already had a family? How could he say he mated a human woman and made a hybrid child? Infuriated by his son, the king had done what no other did before. He exiled him from the kingdom, even going as far as writing him off from the records of the royal family. Thus, in the future, there would never be anyone knowing of the future king's younger brother. His father had even gone so far as to prohibit anyone from mentioning his name. The man was upset at the father who never seemed to favor him, but he still never believed his exile would be forever. As long as his child would have royal blood, his father would be forced to accept his family, and he would finally take them to the royal palace. Don't cry, Fenrir. You are a big boy now. Don't worry. Even if you are a hybrid, you are my son. You would surely be able to overcome the human side. Did I not tell you always? The man assured his son, rubbing his head. Only then did the boy smile. He knew that Vlad was speaking nonsense. His father had always told him he would become a strong werewolf. He only wavered for a bit because of the new information. But, as expected, his father knew best. Look, I have brought you a gift. See this rose? This is called a fairy's flower. It is from your grandmother's garden. Now, as you can see, it is transparent. But if one with royal blood would touch it, it will turn blue. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Hold it in your hand, the man joyfully said. As long as the rose turned blue, he would prove the king was wrong, and his exile would end. Touching with cheerfulness the rose, the boy waited for its color to change, but the enchanted rose remained transparent. It did not turn to any color, not to mention blue. In the present time, Celia was still standing still, even though she did not like the feeling of his hand on her face, as the only one who had caressed her cheeks had been her mate. In her current human form, she could not do much even if she wanted to, as the man before her seemed capable of killing her at the slightest of mistakes. But, even in her fright, she still understood the meaning behind his words. By associating her with the king, could this man know she was his mate? Why else would he say she was the strongest werewolf's weakness? I have no idea what you are talking about. Celia feigned ignorance. There were not many that knew of her existence as the queen, as long as she denied it. This man had no way of verifying the truth. She did not want to become a bargaining chip in his hands. The demon-like man chuckled at her failed attempt to hide the truth. The beautiful woman before him looked so innocent and pure, even in her sole appearance. Dressed in a black uniform, how lovely would it be if he had a mate? A mate like this woman before him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The man asked happy. Yes, Celia firmly replied, still standing by her words. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. The man murmured, thrilled at the woman who had not avoided his gaze and did not shriek from fright. As expected of the future queen, he did not try to explain his words more. He only took his other hand from behind him, as if prepared for this exchange of words, and provided the evidence of his claims. The transparent rose, which his father had once hoped would turn blue at his touch, easily turned to a light blue hue as it touched her cheek gently. He looked mesmerized at the new color of the rose, but at the same time quite enraged by it. No matter how much his mad father had placed the rose in his hands, and repeated the word blue as if it were an enchantment, the rose never changed. Seeing the blue rose, Celia quickly stepped aside. In one of her usual walks inside the garden, Solas had finally revealed to her the true meaning of the blue color. This man, who exactly was he? How did he know secrets of the royal family? A secret only known by Solas and the council. Surprised, little queen, don't worry, the secret of our royal family is still safe. I never told anyone of the blue rose, the man said with a hoarse, calm voice, a little sad at the loss of touch. He had clenched his hand into a fist to preserve the residual heat. His cold hand had never been so delighted at another's warmth, like it had been just now. Perhaps, in the distant, long-forgotten past, the touch of his kind mother had also felt like that. But it was too long ago to remember it accurately. Our royal family? Asked slowly Celia. She was very frightened finding herself in this situation and of his presence, but did not know why someone had kidnapped you, for what reason, frightened her even more. She could not tell if he was only going to have a bit of a conversation with her and kill her, or another larger plan had been prepared. The man before her was the only one who could shed light on where she was and why, even though ironically his heart and presence seemed as black as night. Being the older cousin of Solas, shouldn't I have included myself in the royal family? Pleased with her confused expression, at the royal palace, as much as she had tried to deny it, the order of the king had to be obeyed by the reluctant Yvonne, who answered the questions one by one, causing herself to be submitted to a much greater alpha pressure from all those in the throne room. With each answered question, she had tried to seek her grandfather's eyes in the beginning, but the latter avoided it, only showing an anger-distorted face. So in the end she only looked towards the ground, who came closer to her as she talked more and more of her sins. In the end, forced to speak even without her will, Yvonne had related to them what she knew of the one she had supplied information to, which unfortunately was not much. She had also lost all her desire to resist, realizing it was futile, as it only hurt her more not to answer. But she could not understand what role Celia had in all of this, why talking about her to someone had incurred this much wrath from them. She was an alpha, and a watcher also. But why would His Highness treat them in such a cruel manner, and had made all the family submit to him and force the truth out of them, when he had never done such a thing in the past? Just for her, she had always been certain she would never be caught, by being a granddaughter of the king's official, so she had dared gamble for a better future. But why for only a fling? Wait, she had remembered what he said in the beginning. He had said nothing was more important than his queen. Could that alpha perhaps be the much-awaited queen? Was that why that man had also changed his attitude when she spoke of Celia? Right. That man changed his attitude at the mention of the garden, and he also expressly asked her the color of the rose. Councilman Reynolds had also changed his stance, seeing that woman touch the rose. If that man knew more than he let on, then she had indeed leaked a very dangerous information. It could not be compared with telling him the king was not in the palace that night. For him to abduct some students. What is going to happen to me? She murmured slowly, a question more for herself rather than the others. She had dared conspire against the future queen, a ruler possibly chosen by the goddess. It would all depend on how I find Celia. If she's unharmed, then you will only be exiled. Would she have even a small scratch on her body, your head shall fall. Solos said expressionless, hearing the question. At this point, Yvonne was much too pale and frightened to even respond or have a reaction. She was so shocked that she did not react in the slightest when the guards carried her to the dungeon. She did not even try to plead or beg for a lighter sentence. I am going first. Gabriel, gather all the men that you can find. And come, Solo said, already getting up and wanting to go towards the doors. Wait, wait, Gabriel exclaimed and immediately went in front of him. Stepus eyed Gabriel. Or I will make you myself, Solos affirmed, already increasing his pressure. There was no time to wait. His little one must already be frightened on her own. You can't leave on your own. You will not save her by doing this. We must go together. Solos, please listen, they want her alive, or they would not have gone through the trouble to get her out of the academy. If you go now, you will get yourself killed. They have hunters. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Logan, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Who knows what else they have? Gabriel quickly stated, trying to convince him. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Logan, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Solos did not listen to his reasons, and trying to not hurt his friend this time, like how he was about to do so at the academy, with lightning speed went around him, to still walk out. He did not manage to bypass his friend, when the council member stepped in front of him and immediately kneeled, to oppose the king twice. They were already being traitorous. Immediately Gabriel then spoke with more convincing words, seeing him stop for a second. Really, this man, the only words he would listen to these days were those accompanied by a magic name. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. What would she do if you go and get yourself killed? Do you think she would be happy? Do you think she would be thankful? You know how she is. She will blame herself for all her life. Have just a bit of patience. Just 2 hours. No, an hour. To gather some men. We will all go together, Gabriel said without even breathing, afraid Solos would already be gone before he got through to him. Corroborating the information from Yvonne, with the missing cases, and the few leads they had barely managed to gather. 1. This man had under him quite a few underlings, of which they did not know much. Solos was indeed the strongest werewolf, but he was mentally weak now. His mind was too chaotic of worrying, so who was to say that just like last time, could possibly get injured? 2. They were preparing something big. They analyzed twice as powerful wolfsbane and the missing people. They were most likely researching something, and had been preparing for a long time already. The werewolf kingdom had many strong werewolves, but this situation had caught them off guard. There were not so many in one place, so they could not just go to war. Right now, Gabriel could only gather about 3,000 strong werewolves. But would they be enough? And 3rd, the enigmatic man whom Yvonne spoke of. He was a strong man by himself. He was not a true king, although he preferred to be called one, and everyone around him was obligated to also call him as such. His strength could perhaps not be reckoned with, as Yvonne had gone pale at just mentioning his name. Thin rear,